Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the 3rd and 20 Dynasty Podcast. I'm JT, joined by Frank and Lounis. Jake is on vacation. We're just gonna dive right into things. I don't know. We don't have a whole lot going on right now. Not a ton of news and notes as a past, but we do have some juicy stuff with my team, the New England Patriots.
Yes.
As it's been reported that Mac Jones has been shopped to multiple teams. There have been Patriots beat reporters who have refuted this claim or at least tried to cast some doubt on it. So it's kind of mixed bag as to what we think. Personally, as a Patriots fan, shop him. I don't care. Like, Mac Jones is a good quarterback, but like he's not a Super Bowl winning quarterback. And that's, at the end of the day, that's what I care about. So if you could get me Lamar Jackson for Mac Jones and like 2 firsts, fine. If you could get me I don't know. Just
they wouldn't even have to give Mac Jones in 2 firsts. You just give the 2 firsts and offer Lamar a ton of money, then you trade Mac Jones to a different team.
That's true. You probably don't have to trade. You could do 2.
I wonder if they called San Francisco, if that rumor is true.
Well, I could see it. I'm still on the. We talk about him every week, but I'm firmly Lance.
I like Lance more, but
I just think this headline's weird because it wasn't just Mac Jones being shopped. There was a lot of headlines. Oh well, like the coaching staff hates him being shopped. Not because I think a lot of players, and this probably happens so much more than we even hear about, are just brought up by general managers or maybe even like owners in like if they're just talking, right? Like without like any real validity to the claims, but they might be just asking like, oh yeah, like, are you interested in this guy? And so I do think 1000% that has gone on, that that if that's being shopped, right, his name is at least brought up in a trade talk. 1000% I believe that happened. But I think the real question for me is, are the other reports true? Is Bill Belichick just like out on Mac Jones? Is the team potentially out on him? Because there was the whole like, oh, he disagreed with the coaching staff a lot last year. That was very evident from watching him. I mean, he was like Howdy McHowderson.
Yeah, but I agree. But also like, and I could see how Belichick would be. I think the report was like he called like his Alabama offensive coordinators and was like, how do I deal with this? And Belichick wasn't happy about that. But I mean, clearly like Belichick agreed to some extent because he fired the OC.
Right. So, and I'm just like, I want to differentiate. Is it just, okay, he was brought up in some trades? Because if it's just his name's brought up in some trades, I don't care. Right? I don't care, because then he'll most likely still be a starting quarterback. And I really don't think Mac Jones is a bad quarterback.
No, I think Mac Jones, even coming out of this draft, would be the 3rd quarterback, probably. I think he'd just be behind Bryce Young and CJ Stroud.
He would probably be behind Anthony Richardson as well. If Anthony Richardson gets top 15 draft capital, that rushing upside in dynasty drafts 1000% catapult.
Well, I'm talking about from a what?
Oh, NFL? From an NFL draft.
Yeah, not from dynasty.
That's an interesting argument.
Are you talking like Mac Jones coming out of college?
Yeah, you could do both. Yeah. I think either way you split it, he would be better than Will Levis. And
yeah,
Richardson is the one where I'm thinking.
Richardson, I think everyone's kind of said like he's gonna need time to develop, and that like even like his like staunchest believers are like he's gonna need time to develop. Whereas Mac Jones, it was kind of evident. I mean, he literally he kicked Cam Newton off the team basically. But so that's one side of it, where I think Mac Jones is a good quarterback. And I mean, if you could shop him to a team, now there's bad blood between these two organizations. It's kind of more one-sided, but if you could shop him to a team like the Colts, who maybe they don't really like Will Levis or Anthony Richardson, but Mac Jones is available, maybe they trade for Mac Jones. Great. In terms of like the offense and what we've seen with this Patriots offense and kind of using it in a dynasty perspective, looking at that team, it was a very predictable offense, and I'm surprised like Ramondre Stevenson got as many points as he had. I'm not that surprised that Jacoby Myers had just a meh season, because when it came down to it, if it was 3rd and long, you knew it was either going to be a screen or a draw. 2nd and long, it was almost always a run up the middle to try and like get into short yard situations. Like it was never a fully fleshed out offense, I would say. And I think it's easy to point to Patricia as the blame. Maybe the Patriots have decided that Mac Jones is also partially to blame for that. Maybe they didn't trust him to run a more in-depth offense, and that's why he wasn't being used. But I mean, to me, I would more so on the side of blaming Matt Patricia and saying that this offense was just bad. I don't blame Mac Jones for being like.
I agree with that. You want to know what that offense kind of gave me vibes of? Now that I'm thinking about it more, that Giants offense with what's his name as the head coach, the other Patriots guy, Joe Judge.
Joe Judge, yeah.
It felt like that felt like a Joe Judge-esque kind of vibe offensively.
It was
just complete
super vanilla.
Dysfunction. Yeah, super vanilla, and then coupled with a clear lack of talent. So now, with that being said, right, like let's say Mac Jones. I actually kind of like Mac Jones, right? I'm not even going to say the hypothetical. If he could have a Daniel Jones-esque turnaround, right? They bring in a guy that's had prior success in the league. I mean, the reason he got canned, Bill O'Brien, was because of those GM moves, right? Not because of his coaching. Is now the time to get in on Mac Jones to try and capitalize on these rumors? Do you wait maybe more till like after the draft? Like, what's the move you think if I'm looking at trying to buy Mac Jones?
I generally think if you're a Mac Jones believer, like after last season, this entire offseason, you've kind of been able to buy low on him. Maybe there was like a slight bump in his value after the OC hire. Right now, like, does it decrease his value that much if he's in trade talks?
I just don't think that these headlines have helped him.
It hasn't helped him.
Because it's not just the trade talks. It was also the other stuff as well.
Here's my issue. He's ranked significantly lower than Will Levis, Kenny Pickett, Jared Goff, Brock Purdy. Like, he's ranked below all these guys.
Right, that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, like, so in that aspect, I would say he's undervalued. But, like, at 3,600, is that still where I want to invest in Mac Jones? That's his keep trade cut price, right? And if we look at, like, comparable players at that 3,600 level outside of the quarterback position, you're talking about the likes of like Rashad Bateman and Zay Flowers, Mike Evans, D-Hop. It gets a little bleak underneath. So I don't know. Like, I think it's fair. I'm not going to give up picks. I'd rather just give up players for Mac Jones. I don't know about you guys, what you think.
I mean, I completely agree with you. And I think the other reason why I haven't been trading for Mac Jones shares on top of that, right? Because your argument there was generally, okay, the receivers and running backs that you can get or draft pick around that same price, probably just more worth than Mac Jones.
Yeah.
Even though, like, I agree with you. I think that Mac Jones as a quarterback in that rankings, right? If you're just going to rank him 1 to 20 or whatever, I think he's too low and too far away from the Kenny Pickett's of the world and the Jared Goffs of the world. But I also just have a philosophical thing where if I'm investing in a quarterback, I want it to be either super fucking cheap or super expensive. I really don't want to get the middling guys unless I think there's super arbitrage value, right? I really think I'm getting a guy that has elite level upside. Yeah, I'm going to miss out on some potentially good quarterback buys, but so maybe I could just pull it up on the screen because like I have one league where it really makes sense for me to try. I need to add a quarterback. I really do. Let me pull it up. Give me half a second. Here we go.
I actually do agree with you in that sense, though, unless you're like a huge believer in the player. Because I think someone that might fall into that middle is someone like, let's say we bring him up every week, but like even earlier, like a Trey Lance. Like if you're a believer in him, he kind of falls into that middle price range. But it makes sense if like you're just really high on him. Otherwise, it's like if you're not high on Mac Jones, then I'm probably leaving it alone.
So like, yeah, I don't have the draft picks really to easily get a Mac Jones. Like 207 is just not juicy enough. The Mac Jones owner is not going to want it. And my build, I mean, I've got a Mahomes, so I don't really need QB1 upside. I'm just looking for, I just don't want to, as a contender, go into the season with Baker Mayfield and backups.
Yes.
I just need to add someone. I'm not sure Mac, like, I do like Mac Jones, man. Like, I think that imagine buying. I mean, this is such a consensus take. So I'm gonna say fucking Jared Goff, not Kirk Cousins. Imagine buying a Jared Goff, right? You're gonna have those up and down years, but I really do think Mac Jones is going to be a starting quarterback for at least the next 2 or 3 seasons.
I agree. But I think Jared Goff is so.
Like, what is the price I have to pay? We got an offer for Mac Jones for 201, and I'm going to decline that. I don't want to. 201, I'd rather have over Mac Jones. I think 202 and 203, I'd rather have over Mac Jones.
Oh, okay. I thought you said you had Mac Jones. You got offered 201. I was like, I may have taken that. Yeah, you'd rather have the 201.
I'd rather have 201 right now. So. Even though that's probably like all in all a relatively fair deal, I'd just rather have the flashier 201.
Mm-hmm.
I think 04 or 05 is where you get him. 204, 205.
207 gets declined if I offer it.
Yeah.
207 gets declined. I think if you're trying to
get
like
a 305 is just not worth. It's just not worth. Like, I still think like 207, 305 might get declined, and I'm not sure I want to do that. I might just rather keep on to that third.
That's gonna get declined, but I think it's fair value. I think what it would take to get Mac Jones, someone who has him and probably drafted him, it'll probably take like a 203. And I'm not going to be the one to pay that, but that's probably what it would take.
I think if you look at from like this draft, for example, Will Levis is probably in the first round, 110, 111.
Maybe I try to trade Brian Robinson for him. That would probably make a lot more sense for my team.
I'd do something like that. I'd trade Brian Robinson for Mac Jones.
Now, what if I have to give up Brian Robinson and a smidge? Still
fine. I'm way more confident on Mac Jones' ability of being a starter in the league than Brian Robinson's.
Yeah, Brian Robinson, I'm like, I like him, but I'm still like.
So you guys would both just, I'm not sure that gets accepted from the vibes of throwing it out there.
Yeah, I think the 203-ish is probably more appealing.
Mm-hmm. I think that's what it's going to take.
Yeah, I don't want to give up 203. I think 203 is a pretty darn phenomenal pick, all things considered, right now.
Yeah, I mean, compared to Mac Jones. It's just interesting, though, because, like, what I was saying earlier, Will Levis is in that first round. Like, he's going to be a first-round rookie startup pick. And, I mean, he is ranked relatively higher than Mac Jones, if I pull it back up here. But do people truly think Will Levis is a better quarterback than Mac Jones? Like, are there people really out there who think that?
I think there's a couple factors at play. First off, the NFL draft hasn't happened, right? So if Will Levis goes outside the top 15 picks, then I think his ADP falls a little bit more. Sure. Second, I think the argument for just, let's imagine their prices were equal, taking Will Levis over Mac Jones, you kind of just get a re-roll on Will Levis.
Yeah.
At a guy to be elite. Because right now it's like, okay, Mac Jones, the market price, he's not an elite quarterback, and he doesn't really have a good shot of being an elite quarterback. He's priced high because of kind of that, like, okay, he's probably pretty safe. He's young. He can pan out as a QB2 pretty easily. That's kind of what the market says about him. Will Levis he could be a fucking stud. Like,
I guess, yeah. Signs point to him.
I understand what you're saying, but in terms of like the reroll, like, just the ceiling is different. Or I guess like not really sure, but I think draft capital is going to be very talented because if he falls out of that top, I don't know, top 12, like. At that point, I become on Will Levis.
The Will Levis price, I think it does make sense, right? Yeah, he could become a super beast, but no one really wants him that badly, so he's just falling into that late first.
He kind of reminds me of Zach Wilson a couple years ago. Not saying that he's going to have the same career arc, but I mean like Zach Wilson coming into the draft.
I think there are a lot more fans of Zach Wilson.
Yeah, I think there was.
No, there were, and he was the number, and he was the number 2 pick. But I just mean someone in terms of like, I feel like the Dynasty community wasn't really high on Wilson. Like everyone liked Lance, Lawrence, and Fields more, but still, I feel like Wilson was the QB4 drafted in a lot of those rookie drafts at the time. Correct me if I'm wrong. even though he was the number 2 pick. And that's what I'm saying. The aspect of it reminds me of.
I mean, that draft. If we're gonna talk about that draft, you have to remember that like there was also a lot of just positional players that were like, you know, because you had Kyle Pitts, you had Jamar Chase, you had Najee Harris and Travis Etienne. So like part of the conversation wasn't even just about like, oh, which quarterback do I want more? It was almost like the quarterbacks and those dudes, because like the top 11 picks were basically set. It was just the order of that 11 outside of Lawrence was fucking nuts.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. But yeah, I just meant in that case where it's like talented might go early, but like people just like all the other quarterbacks, I feel way more.
I feel like he's giving me like a Daniel Jones kind of vibe where he's going to get that draft capital. The NFL likes him, but most dynasty players don't really want him a ton.
I like that comp.
Even though I like Daniel Jones more coming out than I do Will Levis.
I wasn't a fan of either. I don't know if you put a gun to my head who I would have chosen if they're coming out at the same time. All right. I mean, anything else we want to touch on with Mac Jones? Like, I think it's unless the Patriots are going all out.
One thing I wondered was like if they did trade him, is they're playing Lamar Jackson? That be?
I would hope so.
I was wondering that, like,
or just tank.
Or just tank. Go for Caleb.
But I can't imagine Bill Belichick.
No, they would draft a quarterback.
Yeah, and it's going to be Anthony Richardson, and that's going to go great.
Listen, man, I would not be surprised if the Patriots were a team that were just like, hey, we'll take like a Hendon Hooker in the second if he falls to us, and just trying to play it that way. I mean, and I think part of it is because of Bill Belichick's success in drafting quarterbacks in the second and the third round previously. I wouldn't be surprised if he's just like, oh, well, I'm Bill Belichick. I'll just be a defense run merchant. We don't need a stud quarterback. I drafted Tom Brady. Look at me. Like,
yeah.
Fair.
I mean, even other guys like you got Jimmy G in the second round, Brissett in the third.
Ryan Mallett.
So I wanted to look at really quickly before we end Mac Jones from a startup perspective, because I agree with you from that draft pick perspective. It's just a little expensive. Where the hell is he? Mac Jones, 8'11". Players directly behind him: Aaron Rodgers, 112, Cam Akers, Pacheco, Rashad Bateman, 201. I think those draft picks just did take them out because I think all the draft picks are undervalued on this. So he's in that tier of like those random RB2 kind of guys.
I'd rather have him than I think any running back ranked below him. Except for Alvin Kamara is a weird one. He's the only one that I'd consider below him.
See, honestly, like when you take out the draft picks, I don't hate this price either.
It gets interesting as to like, would I rather have like a Hollywood? I would definitely rather have Hollywood Brown than Mac Jones, but like, would I rather have a Calvin Ridley than Mac Jones? I'd rather Mac Jones than Jahan Dotson, and they're ranked above him. I'd rather. I think I'd rather. I don't know.
Do you value Ridley that much more than Jahan Dotson?
No. So I'd rather Mac Jones than both of them, pretty solidly.
Yeah.
Well, I also think the other attractive thing when you look at this board, I think that 90% of the quarterbacks on this board are overpriced. Especially once we're out of the first like 3 rounds, it looks awful.
Yeah.
I mean, dude, look at the 6th round. Like,
can you pick the 6th?
The 6th and 7th round, that is disgusting. Because you can make a realistic argument that Mac Jones should be worth more than every single one of those players, and you are paying significantly higher prices for them.
Where is Deebo Samuel going last year? Because I feel like wide receiver 22 is a significant drop.
Yeah, that he's underpriced. He was going around like the 3rd round-ish, 4th round-ish last year. There was that crop of receivers, T. Higgins, CeeDee Lamb were generally, A.J. Brown were generally like the first handful off the board. And then after that, like DK, Debo, Chris Godwin, I think even, like, it was kind of just random order beyond that. The Belichick impression. Honestly, all right. Well, we were doing the startup thing last week. I mean, I think we might as well just keep rolling with it because we've already been talking about it. Let's just start going from the third round down because we did the first 2 rounds last week. I think what's really interesting about the third round compared to last year is that I feel like Mark Andrews' stock is up from last year, and I don't really hate Kyle Pitts as much as some other people do. Yet, and I understand why Kyle Pitts' price is down, but I feel like it's down a little too far. Same with Mark Andrews. He was going almost like a full round higher last
How much
year
do you
in
think the
startups.
Lamar Jackson stuff has played into that?
How much do I care?
I'm not saying how much you should care. I'm saying how much do you think it's played into that average ADP falling to like the consensus?
I don't
'Cause I
think
think that's
much,
played
to
it.
be honest with you. I just think that Mark Andrews, he's always been not flashy enough. He doesn't have that draft capital. He's not as good as Kelsey, and he's not as young and with the draft capital as a guy like Pitt. So he's just kind of always that last dude down. I felt like last year I didn't want Andrews in the middle of the second. I would have much rather had the top and other positional players. But you're telling me even in the mid third? No, not really in the mid third. Late 30s, I think he's fine right around there, like 310, 309 if we're taking out the draft picks. Because I'd rather have him over Tua, probably, Mark Andrews.
Yeah, and I mean, as much as I like Mark Andrews, like there are guys pretty close after him that you could argue I could see someone preferring over Mark, like between Drake London and Devontae Smith. So even though there might be a guy or two ahead, also I think the late third generally makes sense. Kelsey continues to be the hardest person to evaluate value-wise. I feel like every single year we feel like it's gonna happen, and he goes out and he plays at an absolutely absurd level, and the Chiefs still haven't added someone who's gonna even like come close to really biting into his targets, like a Tyreek or something. But yeah, the tight end landscape is interesting right now.
I'm
not investing in Kelsey.
No, me neither. But I think where Mark Andrews is fine because I don't see anyone else really knocking him off.
How do you
that spot?
I was gonna say, how do you guys feel about the tight end landscape? Like, if we see generally where these guys are, and like I know we're talking only about the third round. Some of these guys are in like rounds later, but like, say you're trying to become like a playoff team and compete. Like, which ones are you really going for?
Kyle Pitts.
Like,
I'm taking Kyle
so
Pitts.
You're going and paying that premium price for Pitts, or like are you saying like let me try to get like a Goddard or Freiermuth for a little bit cheaper, but I still have faith in those guys long term?
Nope. I'm taking Kyle Pitts in the second over basically anyone. It's kind of cut off now, but I'm taking him as early as like 202, 203. Like I'm taking Kyle Pitts very early, and then after Kyle Pitts, it's Mark Andrews at around that price. I think that's a fine price for Mark Andrews. And then after Mark Andrews, I'm just kind of fading anyone else. And then I'm just going to take dart throw shots at tight end like a Greg.
So at that point, you would just go dart throw. Because for me, I like guys like, I know maybe I have some sight, but I'm like a big Goddard fan. I'd like getting Goddard in the 5th or 6th round. He's tied into that offense in QB for a while.
Yeah, but he's kind of just always that third option on that team at this point, right? Like
he is, but it's an offense that scores a lot.
I think the problem I have with Goddard and Freiermuth isn't Goddard or Freiermuth. I just like there are receivers that I know I can get cheaper than them.
Mm-hmm. That's kind of where I land too.
And every single draft, you're gonna have that dude because, like, I think the tight ends is one of the easiest positions right now in startups, and I think you could make the same argument for last year. Because no matter what, if you jump up half a round ADP, you can basically get any tight end you want.
Yeah.
It's just I like Freiermuth and Goddard. Like they're good; they'll give you like consistent numbers. But I think you could just get 2 tight ends in the 10th or 11th round and just stream those 2, and you'll probably get very similar numbers. where you could just take that value of that fifth and the sixth and put it into a receiver or running back, and gain points that way.
I will say I do agree with that, simply because I think that, once again, taking the draft picks on this screen out of the equation. Actually, wait, let me bring back the rest of the draft. The 10th round is like tight end round.
Yeah.
They're like half that round is tight ends. And to be completely honest with you, I think that Dulcich and Njoku are just too far back. I don't know what Cole Kmet's doing up here with some of these other dudes. I think he should be like, I would honestly rather have Dawson Knox than Cole Kmet. And Dawson Knox is like,
yeah, it's
3
just
rounds back.
He put like 2 or 3 good games together.
Yeah.
Yeah, he put 2 or 3 good games together on the worst passing offense.
Yeah, no,
on a team that needs other players. Clearly,
I'm not a Cole Kmet guy either. All right, we're on the same team. David Njoku, I think, could honestly be like
fantastic pickup here. Yeah, I agree with you.
I would take David Njoku before I took like Jordan Love. I'd take him before Amari Cooper as I'm scanning.
I would rather have Njoku. I would take Njoku straight up over Waller, because I do think that I would value Waller in this crop with other 10th round players. I can understand why you would like Waller.
I think he's fine there.
I think he's fine. I am not touching Waller in a startup though. This is the exact type of player that I think I and other people have gotten baited with in the past. Where like, oh, it's so great to take him here. Like, it's just such value. Even when it pans out, even when you drafted Aaron Jones in the 9th round last year, are you really that happy with that draft pick?
I think that's disrespectful to Aaron Jones comparing him to Darren Waller.
Yeah, but that's the hit rate scenario. That's the you're happy scenario is Aaron Jones. And I'm still not jumping for joy.
I thought you were saying it'd be similar.
No, if Darren Waller if Darren Waller has an Aaron Jones-esque season at tight end, like that's the happy. That's the good. Like that's what you're hoping for. And honestly, I still would not argue that that's that fantastic of a pick in the 9th round, because his value is going to be the same, if not lower, probably lower. So you have to be a good team coming out of the startup. You have to be good.
Oh, I agree.
I'm telling you, I took the same fucking bait last year with Aaron Jones. Like, yeah, it's a fine pick. We were cool. We got bounced in the 1st round of the playoffs or something. Like, whoop-de fucking do. I should have, if I drafted any rookie receiver, I have a better value play.
Do you guys want to keep talking about tight ends, or you want to focus back on the 3rd round? Because I have a couple more.
Yeah, we can go back to the 3rd round.
Thoughts on the 3rd round. First off, Tyreek Hill, I think, is too overvalued. I think I have him in the 3rd and 20 league. At 304, like at some point, that speed's going to go. He's 29.8 years old, it says, so he'll be 30 when the season starts. His value is just not going to hold in the 304. So if you're drafting him up there, like you better be building a win now team, and even then I'm skeptical because players around him I think are good, and who knows what the deal is with Tua and his concussions. So I'd be fading Tyreek Hill at that price. Saquon I think is a good buy there. I just think that running back landscape we've talked about before, there's not many running backs I trust. Saquon is one of them. So if I am going to throw a dart, I think that's good. Same with Etienne, honestly. The foot injury is always kind of a concern, because apparently that does have it's more natural that reoccurs. The Liz Frank or whatever he did. So there's always in the back of your mind that's a little scary. But I like Travis Etienne at that price too.
I don't like that Etienne pick at all. Actually, I think that's one of the worst picks in this 3rd round.
Really?
And yeah, I think because the Etienne hype is, I just think a little out of control. He was really sporadic game in and game out. And that last year was like a really good situation for Etienne. That was a phenomenal situation for Etienne to have success in. I think they add a running back. And on top of that, I am still not going to be convinced that he's better than Najee Harris or better than Javonte Williams. I can understand if he's the favorite to score more points, but he should not be like a round and a half higher than those players. I would rather just tier down into one of those other players. If I was doing a hero RB build, I am 90,000 more times confident in Saquon Barkley holding long term. I draft my hero RB. We hold him for the foreseeable future, and I don't give a shit about value. Fine. I'm gonna do that with Saquon. He's just a better player. I'd honestly rather do that with fucking Josh Jacobs potentially. I'm not confident enough in ETN to take him there over the receivers going behind him.
Oh, first off, I'm dumb. 29.8 is the average. What was it? Average pick.
It's the ADP.
Yeah, so Tyreek Hill is actually. I don't think he's that far off though. He's 29. All right, so a moot point.
Going back to the Tyreek Hill, because I actually want to touch on that as well. I agree with you, but more so because if I was gonna go for, like I want a top end receiver for my team, I think that I'd rather just go for Devontae Adams or Cooper Kupp.
Same.
A round later.
I don't know, because both their quarterback situations.
I think I was going to say, I think if you are going for the win now receiver, it's still Tyreek Hill pretty comfortably over those two guys for me.
Well, 1 for 1, yes, but and not to mention the fact that I think I would just take DK, Drake London, Devontae Smith over.
If you want to go the youth route, yeah. But if I'm going for a veteran receiver, would I like if I had to choose Devontae Adams versus moving around up to get Tyreek Hill? Like,
dude, I think I'd just take any value. I
think Tyreek Hill's gonna have a decently better season than Devontae next year, or let's just say even the next 2 seasons.
See, I disagree with Kupp though, because Kupp and Stafford are going to be back again, and
well, do we know about Stafford?
The Stafford situation just scares me. I understand passing on Tyreek to go youth, because like if you want to go with like a Drake London or something like that, I think that makes a ton of sense because Drake London's value is just going to go up. He's young, he's a stud. But versus those veteran receivers, I think Tyreek is in a different tier, considering you have to factor in those other guys' situations.
Yeah, I mean, it's a more interesting conversation when you're just comparing receivers. Like, okay, I'm a good team, I have a contending build. Would I rather just say fuck the value and go for the points? If we're coming at it from a startup lens, which that's kind of what we said we're doing, I'm not taking any of the old fucks. I'm just not, because once again, like you have to be a good team if you draft these dudes, and I'm not confident enough to draft a championship winning team, even with drafting old point scoring motherfuckers. Like,
and a quick aside, I like that you made the executive decision to just cut off Lounis here with the big board. Keep our beautiful.
Oh, sorry.
No, I don't really care. It's fine.
I just kind of dragged it downwards. Yeah, sorry, man. Here, I'll cover us now a little bit, Loon. You're on the spotlight.
Now it's a Lounis spot.
Okay, before we move on to the third round, what do you think of Tua compared to all these other players in the third round?
I don't know what the deal is with his like.
The concussion bar makes it scary because if you told me he's going to be completely fine, then it's great value at 308 when you're considering his age and what the output he can give you.
I don't know if it's great value because I think at the end of the day, like Tua is like we keep turning back to him, but he's just a slightly better Kirk Cousins. Like,
yeah, but he's slightly better Kirk Cousins at like 20 years old.
Yeah, that's the interesting thing on potentially a better offense than Kirk Cousins has had up until recently, right?
Like if you're telling the health thing is the only thing, because if I don't have to worry about the concussions, I think that his value is great here. Because you say like a slightly better Kirk Cousins, yeah, Kirk Cousins is still productive in fantasy, and then this Tua's what, like 8 years younger?
Yeah, but Kirk Cousins greatly benefits from his wide receivers.
Tua definitely does. But I mean,
so Tua does too. And my question then is, obviously Jalen Waddle's there for now, but
yeah,
Tyreek Hill is going to age out sooner rather than later. I just don't know what a Tua-led offense looks like when he doesn't have 2 top-tier wide receivers, and I think that's going to come sooner rather than later, where he doesn't have those two top tier wide receivers.
So definitely have one. Waddle is still young. But I mean, with Tyreek, they had Tyreek like a drop off will start to come. But like, what, last year was he first or like top 3 in receiving yards? Like, I still think for the next at least like 2 to 3 years, you'll be getting those 2 high level receivers, and then after that, we'll see there'll be Waddle there. They'll probably choose to extend Waddle and then let Tyreek go after his contract. And I'm not judging him so much as the talent as a quarterback, because I'm with the consensus generally that like he's not on like that like same tier as a lot of the other young quarterbacks talent wise. But I'm just looking at a fantasy production standpoint alone. Like when he plays and he's healthy with those guys, he's productive. It's just the concussions and even like the other injuries, because he's like a small dude. That's the part that's scary. So that's why he's kind of in that in-between range between a lot of those top guys. And he's the only quarterback to go in the 3rd round, right?
So
yeah, go ahead, Frank.
Where I disagree with you guys, and I disagree heavily with your arguments, by the way.
Oh, all right.
I don't give a shit who the fuck is on his team. I don't care if he was throwing to frickin' Jake. All right? All I care about with this price tag, right? Because to me, in the 3rd round, and some of the dudes he's going around, I mean, I'm not comparing Tua versus like, oh, well, maybe Jared Goff will be good this year. He's got let me put my glasses on. He's got a good offense. No, I'm drafting Tua here because I think I'm getting an elite quarterback in the 3rd round. An elite quarterback shouldn't be there in the 3rd round. So to me, the question is, and the only question should be, do I think Tua has elite level upside? If that answer is no, then I am not drafting him. If that answer is yes, then I am smashing him and breaking my keyboard doing so, or I guess my mouse, or touchpad.
What's your answer?
I'm probably leaning no.
Okay,
I'm probably leaning no.
Yeah, I mean, mine looking at too is. I don't think Tua is an elite quarterback. I do think he could sneak into top 10 and whatnot. But like right behind him, I see at least two wide receivers in Drake London and DK Metcalf that I think are potentially top 5 in their position, or at least can push it just like Tua can. What did you say?
Someday you'll respect Devontae Smith.
Well, I mean, it's just that Devontae is much older if we're doing the age conversation. I think what you were talking about with the hero RB, obviously Saquon, I think we agree there. Travis Etienne, I would also argue. Now, you would disagree there, but I think he's another hero RB where you could get a definitely top 10 player at your position there. Where Tua, like, I just think I could wait and just, again, similar to the tight end theory, right? I think I could just hold out and wait and get the likes of, I don't know. Like when I say Mac Jones, I know Mac Jones is not going to.
Yeah, that makes sense though. At Mac Jones's price, if you're going for a QB2, you're obviously going to pick Mac Jones over Tua. If you think Tua is a QB2, but this is the whole debate with this price, is that you have the people that are drafting Tua in the 3rd are thinking, oh, I'm getting a guy that I value just as much as a Dak Prescott, or if not more.
I think also what plays a part in it, I think the people who they view that there's a slight drop off in terms of like young, good QBs that are available. Because there's a reason we see the next QB isn't drafted until a round plus later. So if like you're a Trey Lance believer, you'll think that Trey Lance also falls into that category. So you'll probably avoid on Tua to draft Lance the next round. But if you don't believe in Trey Lance, everyone after that, it's like someone may be like, I'm Daniel Jones, and you got guys like Russell Wilson, Jared Goff, who are a little bit older. Like, so I think part of it is also, I'm sure that there are some that believe that there's a drop off after Tua at the quarterback position.
Right. I think all in all with the 3rd round, the strat that I would be employing probably 80% of the time would be just drafting the good young receiver on the board, whoever that good young receiver, the highest one on my board is. And I really think, I feel like I've done this for years and years and years. The 3rd round, I've just smashed receivers. And I look back and I'm never unhappy with doing that.
Yeah, I have no qualms if you do that as well.
Especially because I think a lot of the times in Dynasty, you can just get a really talented young receiver. That those young receivers that are ranked like wide receiver 8, wide receiver 7 to like wide receiver 11 or 12. The argument between them and the young receivers above them, it's either the guy above them is Justin Jefferson, or there's like a fraction separating them. One of the two.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
no, I completely agree.
Okay, let's move on to the 4th round. Because I like, you could just look at it's a rainbow with all the shit going on here, and I imagine that the 4th round of these drafts is going to get pretty wacky, specifically because there is a clear value difference at the top couple of picks of the 4th round versus, I mean, it kind of just becomes a shit show after like 403, in my opinion.
There's definitely a tier break, and then it becomes like really specific into guys whether you do or don't have faith in them, like, because it really is dependent on each dynasty player, like how you view a Trey Lance or how you view a Javonte Williams, even like a Najee. Because I feel like the evaluation on some of those guys is like such a wide range.
Yeah, this is a really wacky round. I guess the first question I'll ask is, because I've kind of already answered it multiple times, I'm going to be trying to take a younger player here. Or would you guys settle for the Cooper Kupp or the Devontae Adams type player in this round?
Never.
No. In the 4th round, I'd rather. Well, one, if there are trades going on, I'd look at possible trades to pick up like a 5th or 6th and like more picks. But if like I'm missing out on those top 3, if Trey Lance is there and I need a QB2, I still like Trey Lance. I'd think about Najee and Javonte. This is kind of more into like the 5th, but some of those guys, like, because if you're taking out the draft picks, the rookie draft picks, and these guys might move up into the end of the 4th. Guys like Jameson Williams or Stevenson or Pollard or DJ Moore. Those are kind of the guys I'd probably go youth and just hope that one of these guys like hits big. But I think it's like kind of nice trade down territory also, if you're missing out on some of those top guys.
Yeah, so I think the more I look into this, the more I believe that I would try to use the 4th round or the 5th round as my hero running back pick, or the pick where I take my first running back.
Taking like a Najee.
Right, because I think my ideal draft is that I go quarterback, either my, Kyle Pitts, Mark Andrews, receiver in the 3rd, another receiver in the 4th, whether that's, one of the chunks or, oh, no, I fucked up. A receiver in the 3rd. Then, receiver, running back, tight end, whoever's highest on the board, good young player. So, like, after these 3 and the draft picks, I would want Najee, Javonte, 107, Michael Pittman. That's a little high for Judy, but to be completely honest, I don't really think he's that far off from me taking him around here.
You take him in the 4th? You take Jerry Judy in the 4th?
I think if I were to make a big board, he would fall towards the end of the 4th on my big board.
He's firmly not there, is how I say it. Looking at, I think Daniel Jones is the clear guy to me who doesn't belong there. Because I think Daniel Jones definitely had his best season, and even then it wasn't that great. And I got that he got the contract just now.
People drafting him there, though, don't think that that's his best season.
I can see, like, there is a world where
people drafting him there are going to be saying, like, imagine him with receivers now. I'm not one of those people, but I'm saying that's going to be the thinking of them.
Yeah, I think it's the same argument that's being made for Justin Fields, where it's like, now he's got the weapons, but what does that mean? He probably doesn't have to run as much, and the running upside is kind of why I want you. So I'm not drafting you for your mediocre passing ability. So I'm not that interested in Daniel Jones, especially in the 4th round. Trey Lance is the weird one. We talk about him all the time. I'm still a Trey Lance truther, so I would love to get Trey Lance in the 4th. The rest of these guys, I think I do agree with Frank. I would want definitely the front 3 receivers, less so on Devontae Smith, but like still would want him in that 4th round. And then after that, I'm kind of I don't really want any of these other guys that are there. Well, Austin Eckler, I think like his situation's sketchy.
That's why I say like some of those young guys that you see in the 5th round are who I'd be looking at.
Yeah,
dude, I was looking down the board at Hollywood. I think I would have Hollywood placed in the 4th round if I were to make a board.
Yeah, Hollywood I'd push above Judy. I'd have Hollywood above. In terms of wide receivers that we could see on the screen, right? I'll go back to front. I'd have Hollywood over Chris Godwin, Pickens, Burks. Debo's an interesting one.
I was going to say I'd probably have Debo here as well. I think I would be heavily considering Debo.
I think a lot of these wide receivers would get pushed up in reality. I don't know. Maybe we're just more of a wide receiver.
Yeah, you say that until you look at the running back landscape, and the longer you wait to take your running back, because I mean, if we look by the time that the 5th round has happened, right, the first pick of the 5th round, a majority of teams don't have a running back. It's like half the teams.
Yeah.
And there's a very realistic chance that a team that drafts a running back could draft a second. So like,
so we're in the 5th round right now. I think
imagine we're at 501 and this is the board.
I think my ideal startup to this point, I'll say I'm team 10. I think my ideal startup is to go Lamar in the 1st, right where he is. I take Kyler in the 2nd, bump him up there. I don't know if you're expanding it right now.
Yeah, I put it on the screen.
Yeah. So I take Kyler in the 2nd. Boom. I got my quarterback situation. It might not be great this year, but I have it set for a while.
Then you're probably going London and Metcalf?
Yeah, in the 3rd round, if Kyle Pitts is not going to follow me.
No.
Mark Andrews is enticing right there. I might just sort out my tight end right there. 3rd round tight end. 4th round, I'd get whoever falls between Drake London and DK Metcalf. I'd love to have either of them. And now we're seeing in the 5th round. And I mean, Hollywood is a very realistic player that I'd get right there in the 5th round.
He's criminally undervalued on this. Everywhere.
I mean, not just him, but some of the other receivers in this 7th, like I think Ayuk and Terry should also be a little bit higher when looking at the guys.
I agree. I just think when we talk about Hollywood, like
Hollywood
he's got
is
a smaller
really
frame and everything, but he is like an alpha receiver. Like he dominates target share.
D-Hop isn't going to be on that team come week 1.
Well, I just think it's as simple as this. You can go down. Let me expand it a slightly more to include all the rounds that I'm thinking of. Is there another round here? I'll kind of include the 8th round. If we look at rounds 2 through 8, and you compare the receivers to every other position being drafted there, the receivers are just better than the other positions you're drafting.
Yeah.
But then the case I'll bring to that, and even though I like drafting the receivers kind of early on, is the case for that then you can probably wait on receivers?
Yeah, but then my argument is, okay, so let's go from 9 and
because
however many rounds?
Like, say instead of drafting early, like what if you come away in like the 6th and 7th round with like Treylon Burks and Hollywood? Like
I do think that
and Brandon Ayuk.
There's a big drop off once you get to the 10th round in terms of wide receivers. 10th.
I agree, because now when we look at, so now I have on the screen, it goes from the 9th round to like the 17th round. I think now we see all the positions are relatively equal in terms of the types of players you're getting, the risk, and all that stuff, right? Because it's like, okay, Rashad Bateman, and take your pick of whatever one of these sophomore running backs you think is going to hit, other than Rachaad White. I think he's the only one you wouldn't be able to afford here. You could take your fucking pick at whatever one of those guys you like. Compared to Rashad Bateman, compared to, Mike Williams, right? like,
Yeah, it's not great.
The more I look at, the more I think how I'd like my ideal startup to go is quarterback, tight end if I could get one of the top two in Kyle Pitts and Mark Andrews, wide receiver if I can't, Actually, not true because I'd take Saquon or Travis Etienne. So quarterback, BPA in the third round, and then I think wide receiver the next 2 rounds. And after that, I think I have the flexibility to just go wherever. Because I basically filled the front end of my roster at that point. The second running back can be sorted out later on if I want. The third wide receiver could be sorted out later. If I haven't taken a tight end, I'm just going to punt on that until the 9th, 10th round. So, yeah, that's, I think, the best value play. Quarterback, BPA, wide receiver.
Yeah, with this board, the way that it's positioned, I would be hammering receivers and draft picks.
Yeah, I'm just thinking all those draft picks are probably getting shifted up.
Yeah, I agree, and I do think that
Bijan goes, but
like for example, DK Metcalf, Drake London, and Devontae Smith probably all go in the 3rd round.
Yeah, end of the 3rd.
Yeah. Are people realistically taking? I guess I could see it. Like Jahmyr Gibbs is going ahead of these guys. I'm assuming he's the 104 currently. He's going ahead of Drake London, DK Metcalf.
I mean, I also think it is league dependent though, because you never really know which veterans are going to slide and who's willing to just take the veteran type players, because those are always the wild cards. I mean, the good young players, you know exactly where they're all going to go generally. Take any good, like really good young player on this board, move them up 4 picks, and that's basically where they're going to go.
I think that's a fair assessment.
Barring, there's always one random good player will slide like a round for no apparent reason, like a round and a half. I don't know why that is. It just happens.
Well, that happens. See that happening to like an Austin Eckler, or he was the first one that came into my mind, at least, because it seems like this is going to be his last year.
I feel like it would be like a Michael Pittman. Like a Michael Pittman would just randomly slide into the 6th round. Or like, imagine we're shifting all the receiver ADPs up because we all think they're undervalued. Like, and then now you're taking him at that 506.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess last point in the startup talk, right? Like, we could talk about all this theoretical stuff, but there definitely is a huge argument, and I think all of us would agree with this, where drafts are fucking weird, man. You can do as much preparation as you want, but at the end of the day, nothing's going to prepare you for, hey, what if everyone is... Let's just imagine our podcast was amazingly popular, and then everyone's like, oh shit, well, I'm going to start smashing receivers. And then all of a sudden, you come the 3rd round where we were saying to take receivers, and there's just a slew of amazing running backs available, right? Then you kind of have to be able to pivot and have like an intuition of when to. There's not really a cookie cutter strategy a lot of the time where it's like, oh, well, you know, if this, then you always have to do that, right? It is like, it's a shit show. It just is.
I think that's often the case too when you join like a league from Reddit or from Twitter, where there's a lot of different hive minds.
Never conventional.
Yeah, you're gonna have those kind of people that everyone likes, people that everyone hates.
Yeah, the only real advice I would have after doing enough of these fucking things is go young, because at the end of the day, people are going to make the argument of, oh, well, if you draft the older players, there's less risk. It's like, well, I disagree with that, because unless you fucking drafted Jalen Reagor, the old guy's guaranteed to go down. My young guy's not guaranteed to go down. So get the fuck out of here. I think I've got way less risk. Give me young players. I want young players. I want young players, or if I'm drafting an older player, it's going to be a Nick Chubb, where I am just completely fine holding him until he's retired.
Also, the thing about like young players too, it's just their eternal optimism is so much higher with the young players, where if you have a Trey Lance who shatters his ankle, is potentially getting replaced by Mr. Irrelevant, he's still 412. Whereas if that happens to like Matthew Stafford, for example, breaks his back, he just plummets. Even if he's going to come back and be the starter, where Trey Lance might have to sit on the bench to start. Who knows?
We saw it after the rookie year with like ETN. Like ETN missed most of his rookie year, he still retains value. I mean, now he gone up after he played.
You have to be a better dynasty manager than me because I get too attached to my pre-draft takes and then hold these guys until eternity, and we'll go down with the ship, right? Like if you're smart and better than fantasy than me, you're gonna be smart enough to realize when you have to sell and maximize value versus when you have to hold. I honestly think that that's the most difficult thing to be good at in Dynasty is being able to pivot off of a take you were very confident in to maximize value. I honestly think that that's one of the reasons why Dynasty players that have a set process for doing things and stick to a strategy for multiple years are ones that will have consistent success. It's because there's multiple ways to win in Dynasty, and if you are just fucking consistent and have found a way where you can win, you'll probably win in the long term doing that. Whether it's, I'm going to hoard draft picks, I'm going to trade all my draft picks for good veteran players. If you're just fucking consistent and make good point or good value moves, you're going to be in a good spot.
Mm-hmm.
He's got to stick with it and try to remove your bias out of it as much as possible. But that's half the fun too, is being like, dude, I fucking called that player X was going to be sweet, and I drafted him in every freaking league. I didn't give a shit. I overpaid for him every league. Like,
I found that as I joined more leagues, I don't like to keep picking the same amount of players because when an incident like Trey Lance happens, it's just kind of it really hurts. It really maximizes my hurt. Where you could do the opposite though, like if I
it pays off, and like sometimes it doesn't. Yeah. Like, I remember in a ton of leagues I took like Jalen Reagor, and obviously that was a disaster. But I mean, like you look at the other end, a bunch of leagues that like took Jalen Hurts before this past season, and that pays off, and then you're able to like talk shit, like Frank said. But it's tough, and I actually do think that being in a lot of leagues is a benefit because you get like less attached to specific players.
I think the distinction that I make is when you are drafting players towards the top of the draft, let's just say the top 15 picks of your rookie draft. Those players are so heavily scrutinized by a bunch of very talented analysts, right? Like they're just like dissecting these players in basically every way imaginable, that you're really not gonna like the market's pretty efficient a lot of the time. Given the risk and the profile of most of the rookies, they go generally where they should go. Yeah, a guy might be a couple picks off, and there's outliers once shit happens. But given the rookie profile of everyone, the top 15 picks are pretty darn good. And I'm pretty sure like Dynasty ADP is probably more predictive for fantasy points than NFL draft capital. Don't quote me on that, but I would put my money that it is. At least after the NFL draft. Like once everyone's got their full shit going on. And it makes sense because NFL teams aren't drafting for fantasy points. We're drafting for fantasy points, right? We should have a higher...
Tutu Atwell.
Right.
DS Bridge.
But when you get outside of those top 15 picks, it's outliers. So at that point, it's like if you think you have a dude that's a diamond in the rough and you draft him in every league, it's massive. It's fucking nuts.
The problem I struggle with recently is tight ends, where I just think like comparatively, like in years past, this is more a case. There's like kind of a lot of good tight ends. I think a lot of people would agree that these tight ends are very good prospects. In the past, when you're looking at tight ends, you're like, oh, this guy's a pretty good prospect for where he's ranked around, and you might just take him, and it almost never pans out. I feel like most of the time, like you're not going to get a tight end in the second or third round, and he's going to end up being like more so third, I guess, late second, third, and on. It's just not going to pan out, or if it does, it just takes so many years that you're just kind of sitting on him because, like, we know tight ends typically don't break out in their first year. Also, second year, I don't think is that.
I don't know about that, JT. I don't know about that.
What part?
because I feel like I've had a lot of success drafting tight ends in that range of rookie drafts.
The late second
into the third round. Yeah.
I'm just thinking of years past as to, I wish I could pull up the historical data, but like, Pat Fryermuth wasn't there, right?
No.
I'm trying.
So the guys I'm thinking of are,
I'm pulling up draft results.
I mean, at least last year, I think Kate Otten. I think I was getting him in the fourth, and to me,
Yeah, but is Kate Otten like a success?
As of right now, I would consider him a success, yes. And I would make the same argument for Cole Kmet, who I drafted at a bunch of the late thirds in drafts. Yeah, right now
Neither
he's
of
not
those
an
guys I'm
amazing
really
asset,
considering a
but-
success.
Well,
I get they've
I
increased
consider them a
value.
success because I could have sold. I did sell a shit ton of Cole Kmets for second round picks, and he was playable. And I think still his value is up from that late third round valuation. Dallas Goedert was a second round guy, but I did like him. I drafted Kittle's, Mark Andrews, I'm pretty sure was a third round dude.
Yeah, I'm just going.
dude.
I'm going through in not our home league. I'm going through in a different league where this was before we were even really drafting. In the third round, we're looking at the likes of like Kenny Yeboah and Hunter Long in the fourth, and like players like this where I'm just not like you didn't have any good players. Pat Fryermuth went in the second, post the early second. The year prior, it was Cole Kmet, who I guess you could sell him for more, but I'm sure there are players around him that you could also have drafted later. Van Jefferson is one that I'd point to, where it's like you could have also just drafted Van Jefferson and traded him at that time. Adam Troutman, I guess he had like a brief month where he was pretty good, but then after that, it's Devin Asiasi and Thad Moss who are getting drafted.
Yeah,
there.
those guys are fourth round dudes, though. At least,
yeah,
maybe
okay.
they went
maybe I was off then more with my thing where I was.
How about this?
Yeah.
I agree with you in terms of if you're going to come out here and draft a bunch of tight ends in the second and third and expect those players to carry your tight end spot if you just hold them on your taxi for 3 years, then I think you're doing it wrong.
Yeah,
the reason I like drafting those players is that most of the time, and it's just the tight end position, tight ends aren't flashy. If you're not a first round type of dude, people just don't want you as much. They just rather take the equivalent running back or receiver prospect. So I feel like a lot of the times, just because of like human nature, I'm able to just scoop up tight ends at favorable ADP. Why not? And like, yeah, I guess I'm more inclined to sell a lot of the dudes, and it's blown up for me, right? Like I sold Mark Andrews for a singular 23 first round pick. Like, it's not really the best move. I lost value and I lost points. Like, I should have held. I sold Dallas Goedert for, like, generally speaking, a little bit less than a first in most leagues. That's probably a move that didn't pan out in terms of, like, what I've held him. But all the times it did, the Cole Kmets, the this is the that's, right? The shits. I think that, like, you know, you draft these dudes and it's pretty decent because I look at draft picks. It's like, could I have sold them for more?
Yeah,
I think most though that you can find a time where you could have sold for more. Now it is
exactly why picks are undervalued in my opinion.
That is true. That is true. But I mean, it's more so with the timing and everything. But I think you could always find the training camp hype for anything. Like I always point back to this. Like we sold Justin Ross. I think we drafted him in the fifth and sold him for a fourth, or draft him in the fourth, sold him for a third, just solely based off training camp hype. It's just more so like, where do the tight ends stack against the running backs and wide receivers at that level? Because I think you're more likely to see a big boost from getting those Elijah Mitchells and those James Robinsons and whatnot from those ranges than you are Jelani Woods or Cole Kmet or an Adam Troutman kind of thing.
Right. I mean, we're getting into, I think, a little bit of a more nuanced conversation where we're starting to compare, because once again, right, and this is kind of the rule for all drafts, there really is no cookie cutter way to draft where you're always going to win. Mm-hmm. So a lot of the time it is, okay, is this tight end just the best player on the board? Where I feel like ranges where that seems to happen the most historically in my drafts has been early second, late third. those are like the 3 zones where I feel like I'm able to consistently scoop up tight ends at favorable value, compared to their profile.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And I don't know, it's weird though, right? Because like you can look back at ADP and there's going to be guys, and every analyst is going to have this obviously, where it's like, I wish I had a better one off the top of my head, but I don't know, there's just going to be like a running back where they go in the 3rd and I'm going to be like, yeah, that guy, I wouldn't have fucking drafted him. Right? Like,
wait, now 3rd, you're talking about Dynasty, or you're talking about
in
NFL?
the 3rd round of a rookie draft, right? Like, there's going to be those dudes. I mean, like, Justin
Zach Evans,
example. I would still draft Zach Evans, but maybe like Jerome Ford. I don't know. That's one I can think of off the top of my head. Maybe Roundtree. Was he going in the 3rd at some point, or was he later?
Oh, what's his name? Josh Kelly, I think, was probably going.
Josh Kelly.
Yeah.
And even you probably could have sold him for more at some point, right? Like,
you could have, because Austin Eckler got hurt, I think. If I remember correctly, I think in 2020 Austin Eckler got hurt, and Josh Kelly was the starter for like 1 or 2 weeks. And you could have sold him for more.
So yeah, I just think at the end of the day, you can draft anyone in the 3rd round and they all have upside, right? You can name examples from any position where it's like, oh, well, I drafted him in the 3rd round. Look at my stonks. Like,
anything else you guys want to talk about?
Oh, we could really quickly get into because I put this out in the Twitter. Freaking who are we buying or selling before the NFL draft? Hollywood, I guess more so. Let's do selling first, because I think that's.
Oh, I was saying Hollywood buying.
All running backs. I'm selling all running backs.
Selling?
Not named, I guess, like Breece Hall. Is that the only one where I had Saquon? I'm not selling Saquon. I'm not selling Breece Hall. There are a couple that I would hold. I can lightly hold.
What about Tony Pollard? Should I sell Pollard?
If you're just basing it purely off value, then I think yes. Simply because I think his injury is going to take a little bit longer to get back to normal form than
I don't think Dallas is going to bring him back, though.
Yeah, no, I don't really care about that. I just think people are expecting him to come back and be fine.
Oh, I thought you mentioned it in the sense of like teams are going to bring him back. Because then I was thinking about James Cook. I was thinking about the guys.
James Cook's a definite sell.
I was thinking about the guys on the Eagles. That 30 pick, I think, is staring them right in the face at drafting a running back, or the 10 pick. And I think they brought in both Gibbs and Robinson on like team visits and stuff.
Rachaad White, I'd move on from.
Rachaad White, I don't know. I think you'll be able to sell it. I do agree he's an eventual sell, but he's someone I'm looking to sell more in season, because I don't think they're going to bring in another big guy. And I think whoever the quarterback is going to check down to him a lot. And I think you'll be able to get a better return for him like mid-season.
Okay.
Plan drafting Kincaid at 2 or 3 in my rookie draft because he has the hand. Yeah, I agree with that as well, especially if he gets the draft capital that's projected. Yeah, I put that in. I put that up. That's generally speaking my running back rankings. The only one, I mean, there's a lot of guys I haven't scouted. I haven't had the freaking time. I think Kendre Miller and Sean Tucker. From like an actual, I think who is better, I'd take Kendre Miller. But Sean Tucker, I kind of put there because of that receiving upside. That's a really tough battle that I'm having, is like, do I draft the guy who I think is better or the dude who has that receiving upside for fantasy?
If Sean Tucker has day 2 capital, I'm all in on Sean Tucker. I'm taking him in the first round, like firmly, if he's drafted in the first.
I'm just so confused why he didn't.
Yeah, I don't understand.
I don't know what's going on with that.
That also has me concerned, but I'm hoping if he convinces NFL teams through player meetings and whatnot, that's fine. And whatever he did is just something random and weird. Then whatever.
It's just
I'm going
weird.
It is weird. But like, Sean Tucker's a weird guy. We've been over this.
He is a weird guy. He is a weird guy. It's just like there's no explanation.
You don't get fantasy points for being a normal person. That's not.
It's like if he just didn't post that Twitter video, it would make a lot more sense. Like,
dude, I don't know. It's just weird.
There are some guys that I'm just like, who's like, I always wonder, like, who's their agent or who's like on their team that's like, yeah, this is a good idea. Like, I with some of the stuff, like him putting out that, I've thought of a lot with Lamar Jackson with some of the stuff that he said online.
Well, he doesn't have an agent.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, so he has a team. I'm guessing. I don't know, but yeah, it's rough.
The second round of rookie right now, I agree with that the second round of rookie drafts is just one big running back dart throw. Once that NFL draft happens, though, it's going to be, at least in my opinion, pretty clear where
once you
ADP a
see
lot of
draft
these dudes
capital
lies
landing
and-
spots, yeah.
I think from the NFL draft, you'll probably see your guy, Devin Achane, I think is how we've decided to pronounce. I think he'll get what was up?
Charbonnet's already seen an ADP increase, and I think that's going to continue.
Oh, you still think he's going to go? He might.
I want to know why? Because
Mm-hmm.
Charbonnet to me is one of these dudes that just kind of fits whatever offense you want to run. So, like, I feel like he's just in play for all those teams in the second round that want to back, from the Eagles to, if you're the Falcons, or maybe now the Chargers who might need a back, the Vikings, right? Like, there's so many teams that I feel like he's in play for.
Yeah, I mean, every way you cut it, I think he's just a better prospect than Brian Robinson, who last year went in the third. So I think we're going to see him go to a good team in that second round.
The only thing that I find annoying about Achane is that his receiving sucks. And it's funny because, like, when you look at it from an analytical perspective, and when you look at his numbers, they're not bad at all. But he sucks as a receiver. He's not good at catching the football and running routes. His timing is shit getting out of the backfield. He's great when he gets the ball, right? Like, if you dink off a screen pass or something, right? Like, he's good, but for a back that size, that is concerning. And that's the thing that sucks, is that, like, because I think that Achane is a better runner than Jahmyr Gibbs. I think that he's near that Travis Etienne level of runner, but he's not a Travis Etienne level receiver.
I feel like I saw somewhere that he's not as bad of a receiver as people say he is.
Who?
Here it is, Achane.
His numbers are good. When you look at his numbers compared to any other, like, top running backs receiving output other than, like, the super studs, it's good. Because the other, this is the good thing about Achane's profile, is that his actual, like, rushing output is phenomenal. It checks basically every box.
Here's the thing. I'm looking at him. All right, I don't know what that one means, but I'm just going to use the first two. So at Z Cants FF on Twitter posted routes run per game, and he was looking at the running backs from this class, and he actually led the class with nearly 30 routes run per game. Sean Tucker was up there, Charbonnet, Jahmyr Gibbs, kind of who you expected. Targets per route run, though, he was more of the middle of the pack, where he only gets about a 15% target share on the routes he runs. So that's kind of where it gets dicey. But if I got a running back who's getting targeted on 15% of his routes to run, I'd consider him to barely make that receiving threshold. It's more so that what I have an issue with is his size, and we've talked about that in the past, where he's just kind of, what is he going to be in the NFL?
Right. If Charbonnet gets second round draft capital, he should be a top 7 pick. See, I think that's what's going to happen, but I still struggle.
I could see. Is he still behind Zach Evans right now?
No, he shouldn't be. I don't think he is.
He should be. He should be where Zach Evans was when everyone was hyping Zach Evans up, and that does appear to be. I just pulled up the rookie rankings. That does appear to be the case, because now he's 10th overall.
Yeah, I think that makes that makes sense. The question I have for you guys is that
Mhm.
are you really going to, like, if we're just comparing player to player, like, are we really taking Charbonnet over Addison, over Downs, whoever your like wide receiver 3 to 5 is, wide receiver? I mean, I guess maybe even 2 when we're at pick 7. You might be able to pick your wide receiver 2. Quentin Johnston, right? Pick your poison. Let's just assume the top 6 is the Bryce Young, Bijan, CJ Stroud, Richardson, JSN, Gibbs.
Yeah.
Like, we're really going Charbonnet now at 107? I think I'd rather just have my receiver 2.
No.
Yeah,
I'd probably take my receiver 2 and 3.
The only one I struggle with. The only one I struggle with is Addison. I want to see what happens with the NFL draft where Addison goes.
No, like, what if Charbonnet goes to the Eagles? They got those back-to-back second-round picks, I'm pretty sure, something like that. Like,
could definitely happen.
That would be like the absolute best landing spot.
I would not be shocked at all.
No, I wouldn't be shocked at all if they bring in a running back in the first 3 rounds.
Especially Charbonnet.
I think he belongs in that conversation then.
You see, like the Eagles,
I might draft him there.
Like, is like the best landing spot because you have the best O-line in the league and a high scoring offense, and that backfield is wide open. So
I think I would rather have Downs and Addison over Charbonnet.
I would
not
too.
Comfortably. Now, here's the thing that's annoying is that I know Charbonnet year 1 is going to be really good, and I know that his price is probably going to remain consistent, if not go up.
That's kind of where that's where I'm landing too. That's what had me drafting Anthony Richardson at like 3 or whatever.
But it's the fucking it's the same story every year where the sophomore running backs get wildly overpriced, and then all of a sudden they all come back scorching down to earth year 3, year 4. To the point where they're arguably undervalued.
Yeah, but if we know that's what's going to happen, then I think it'd be dumb not to. Like, my problem though is I think Quinn Johnston's a beast. Like, I think Quinn Johnston's very good. It's where Addison, now we're talking like say that's who I'm choosing between Addison versus Charbonnet. I know I'm just going to get that boost from Charbonnet. Whereas Addison, like, I like him, but I'm not convinced he's like elite. That's where I struggle.
You know what I've kind of started buying into? If a dude puts up 1,500 yards as a sophomore, I'm probably just going to fucking hit the draft button on him. You know, like...
Yeah.
I'm done overthinking this shit. Like...
Yeah. Well, yeah, at this point, when we're seeing Kenneth Walker going second in the startup, and Zach Charbonnet, I think, is a similar quality prospect to what Kenneth Walker was.
I can't go that far.
I don't know. Last year I would have had Charbonnet over Walker. Wow. If he declared.
Draft ranking isn't.
Really? I don't think that was something I was pretty consistent with last year.
Select the player from the highest tier available that helps your team the most. I mean, I do agree with that one. Like, especially if you can maneuver around the draft board, maneuvering around your tiers is huge. I just have not been able to do that successfully. So if you have any insight on how the fuck to do that, please let me know. I am like the worst trader during the draft of all time. I can't do anything I want to do.
I'm pretty good at making moves, but it's always to draft the wrong guys. Like, I'll trade up and then I'll pick Diami Brown.
I will also say, though, there has been multiple occasions where I've wanted to move up, specifically one league for Javonte. I was picking at 111. I wanted to move up to like 105 or 106. I tried to move up for every pick until 111 for Javonte, and I got rejected every one. And then he just fell to me at 111. Like,
that's crazy.
That's happened to me multiple times with these players. So like, I feel like I gotta tell myself, like, dude, don't trade up. Like, he might fall to you, you know.
And I mean, I've done this before. Like, sometimes I'll obviously I'll hope that the falls to me, but like, sometimes I'll make the offer after I see where they're taken. I was in the case last year. I didn't trade for the pick. For example, like last year, I wanted to trade into the first round to draft Jameson Williams. I didn't want to like try to guess where he would go, so I just waited for as soon as he was picked and made an offer pretty much like the next day.
See, the thing is though with you, Lounis, and I respect this about your process is that you kind of just like get your fucking guys. You're willing to slightly overpay to get the player that you want, and you don't give a shit.
Yeah, pretty much.
That does line up.
And, I mean, the big buys that I've had over the past couple of years has been guys like, Jameson still we're waiting to see a fully healthy season, but I was going to try to either get him or Garrett Wilson for a pretty high price and willing to overpay after the rookie draft. And then the last big person I had like slightly overpaid for like 2 years ago or a year and a half ago was Terry McLaurin, which I don't really have any regrets about. So it really, it's like you just have to be able to pick and choose guys who you're willing to gamble on.
Yeah, I'm too much of a little freaking weasel. Like
listen, Jameson could end up fucking me. I still have faith in him, but
see, the problem is that I'm like the type of dude who I'm like, oh, 3rd round picks, you got to get them. They're so valuable. It's like, yeah, you think I'm going to be giving up my 3rd round picks? In no.
Yeah, no, I let him. But also, you're much better mid-round drafter than me.
I don't know what I'm going to do. I usually am like watching everyone, so now at least like I unless I start grinding the film, I'm going to be flying blind a little bit.
My 3rd round hit as soon as after was like, oh man, I stole Preston Williams in the 3rd, and then like, you back-to-back years in the 3rd, it's like Deontay Johnson and like Darnell Mooney and just like these random steals. So I get it from your perspective, wanting to just hoard up these 3rd round picks.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just there's no rhyme or reason to any of it. Like, I don't know how I get these guys. It just fucking happens. I just like guys. I think the running backs, I have a very much defined process for, where I like guys that break tackles.
Which is why I'm surprised you don't like Kenneth Walker as much.
Well, okay. It's for the most part, I like guys that break tackles. It's not like I hated Kenneth Walker. I just don't think he's an elite running back, kind of like JT.
Okay.
And especially when you compare him to like Josh Jacobs. I understand Kenneth Walker's younger. Yes, I'll concede that. I can understand if and that's the reason why you have him over Josh Jacobs. Fine, go ahead. I don't give a shit. But when we look at the players, we can pull up this freaking board again. Look at the guys going around, the receivers going around Josh Jacobs. Boom. Oh, whoa. Jeez, I just wanted to highlight him. I don't know what's going on. Right here. So you're not getting the juicers in the 4th, the DK Metcalfs, right? You could take a Devontae Adams who's old. You could go really risky with a Watson or a Jameson Williams or a Pittman, right? Or I can go to where Kenneth Walker is, Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson, Amon-Ra, Tyreek Hill, T. Higgins, Drake London. These are receivers that literally check every fucking box. Every box.
Yeah. I don't think I can go as far, even though I'm I guess the highest on Kenneth Walker between us 3 here, I still don't think I'm as high on him as that draft board, his ADP. So I guess I'm lower than consensus, but I still like him a ton.
I think he's wildly overpriced.
Because I generally agree with his running back ranking, where I think he's a top 5 dynasty running back. And you could argue about top 3 or 4, but I'd probably just stick with top 5. But when you compare him to some of the other receivers you can get in that range, then yeah, I'm with you guys.
I think I would have him valued. I even maybe under Najee and Javonte. I like Najee and Javonte more as prospects than Kenneth Walker. Okay, maybe I was a little bit wrong on Kenneth Walker. Cool, but it's 2 rounds. It's 2 fucking rounds.
No, you're right. It's a big difference.
Yeah, he's. I don't know. Maybe I'm an idiot. Maybe I'm a fool. Because you're right, he does break a lot of tackles. I'm pretty sure he's one of the higher ones on my forced missed tackle tracking. But
yeah,
I don't think he's the refined runner that Breece Hall is, that Saquon is, that Christian McCaffrey is, and they also break tackles.
Mm-hmm. Oh, well, yeah, no, those guys are in a different tier, and that's why Breece Hall is RB1, and then the only reason
No, he's RB2. Bijan. Don't hate on Bijan.
Oh, I'm thinking about guys in the NFL right now. Yes, I'd have him RB2 behind Bijan, Breece Hall. But Breece Hall is a fucking superstar.
All right, that's basically all I got, unless you guys want to bring something else up.
No, that's it for now. It's kind of a quiet week, but stuff's going to be heating up. The draft at the end of this month. Excited.
Lots of dynasty owners go into drafts with specific players in mind. Those managers are unlucky to trade down if their target is still available. Yeah, I'm just not overpaying in the drafts. I just can't do it. And I feel like I sometimes offer trades that are overpaced and they still get declined. So it's like I'm not going to wildly overpay. But yeah, if you made it this far, thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. We really appreciate it. For Frank, perfection is the bane of excellent.
Wait. What was that? Read that comment again.
For Frank, perfection is the bane of excellent. I don't have a big enough brain to understand what that means.
Joe Hitler is getting all philosophical on us now.
Okay, I'm waiting to end the show because you got to explain this to me like I'm a goldfish.
No, he's just dropping truth bombs and leaving.
I don't know how to react to that. It sounds provocative though.
I mean, that sounds like a fucking quote from a president. Like, that sounds crazy. Like a philosopher would say that.
I always wonder, that refers to Walker nitpicking. I always wonder, like, if we ever encounter, like a future celebrity or something, and perhaps the future president of the United States is in our chat. It's Joe. Or Isley. What's up, Isley?
What's up, Isley? Future president. I like it.
I mean, listen, I think I will confidently say I think Kenneth Walker has easily over a round less ADP next year. He's going 4th round beyond next year ADP.
Agreed. I subscribe to that theory.
I say somewhere in the 3rd.
But yeah, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Really appreciate it. Joe, Isley, really appreciate you guys. Peter the R, thank you guys for tuning in. Really appreciate it. Thanks for chatting. Always enjoy having you guys around. The perspective on things, the conversation, it really helps out the content. So we really do appreciate it. If you made it this far, thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. Also appreciate it. Peace out. Have a good one. We'll see you next Tuesday.